Hi, my name is Diane Maroney, and I'm the creator of the Imagine Project. I am doing this class today for teachers, and counselors, admin, even parents who want to use the Imagine Project in their classrooms, in their schools, even at home with their kids or even with themselves, because the Imagine Project is a really important tool and for everyone. Any age can use it, and to help to mitigate and to cope with stress and trauma, which the world has so much of right now. So I hope this helps, and thanks for being here, and let's get started. Okay. So typically, I like to tell my story using the word imagine, but it's kind of an intense way to tell your story. So I thought I would just tell you that the Imagine Project basically started fundamentally with my childhood, because my childhood was very stressful and very traumatic. I had a raging alcoholic father. My parents were divorced. They left me home alone when I was very young. I had really crappy boyfriends, and sadly, one day when I was 15, I came home and found my mom, who had committed suicide, which was extremely traumatic and really tried to define me for many, many years. And it was, it told me that a lot of negative things about myself. That day, that experience, what my mom did, is that, I wasn't good enough. People are going to desert me. I wasn't loved. There was a lot of negative things that spoke to me about. And I really held on to those things for many, many years until I was able to do the healing work and learn that I didn't have to be defined by that story. Another kind of bizarre thing about me is I was in a gang. I know I don't look like it, but I was. And it wasn't the gangs of today. We didn't use guns and knives. We used our fists. And it's not something I'm particularly proud of, but it was, it taught me a lot about life. And also, after I was married, I gave birth to a 1 pound, 12-ounce baby girl, and who was very, very sick for a long time. And now she's 26 and doing amazing. She lives independently and beautifully in Nashville as a freelance photographer. So I'm okay, she's okay, but all these experiences really taught me a lot about trauma on a personal level. And then after Mackenzie was born, I'm actually a nurse, and I worked with preemies in the NICU for many years. And then when Mackenzie was born, I just changed my perspective of life with preemie dramatically. So I went back to school. I saw the trauma in her. I saw the trauma in myself. Went back to school, got my master's in psych mental health nursing, and started studying trauma. And, back then there was this was in 93. So back then there wasn't any really a way to treat babies or children, a good way to treat trauma. So I began exploring alternative ways and understanding healing from an alternative perspective. And over time, I began healing myself. She began healing and learned so many different aspects of healing trauma, healing stress from kind of a different perspective than what's traditional. So I infused both. I infused more traditional healing and alternative healing. And that's really where the Imagine Project began. So then in 2010, when I was speaking I began speaking as a nurse, and asked other parents to tell me their story using the word imagine to begin every sentence, so I could read other parents' stories, not just my own. And it turned out it was a really powerful way to tell your story. So in 2010, I began traveling across the country, and I thought, well, how can I expand this, and not just the preemie world, but use this imagine process of telling your story on a bigger scale. So I met some incredible people who had overcome remarkable circumstances, and really just amazing, inspiring people, and they all wrote their story using the word imagine. And I asked them to. And in that, so then from those stories, I created this book. And it's called The Imagine Project, Stories of Courage, Hope, and Love. Powerful book, coffee table, big, beautiful book. But the people who wrote their stories felt this healing process happening. And the people who read the stories felt inspired in their own healing from them, their own inspiration. So, so it turned out, you know, this process was pretty incredible. So then I thought, well, okay, how can I take this even broader? So do I work with veterans? Do I work with people who experience suicide, people who are ill with cancer or other illnesses? And I thought, well, you know, I should see if I can do this with kids, because kids are where the healing really needs to begin. And, you know, when we get to kids young, then it prevents them from having this long-term impact from their negative experiences. So then I asked a friend who was an 8th grade science teacher to see if his kids could write their story using the word imagine. And he said, sure. So he asked these kids, and this was in a suburb of Denver in a, you know, middle-class school. And in this room of 28 kids, these stories were amazing. They were so in-depth and they were so powerful. Stories about loss, stories about their parents not paying attention to them, or their parents paying too much attention to them, or being, you know, feeling left out, or moving, or being sick, or someone in their family being sick. And I thought, wow, this is an incredible window into what's going on with our kids. And then sadly, in that room of 28 kids, 3 kids actually talked about the fact that they might not want to be here, you know, not really full-blown suicide ideation, but they were talking about, you know, just that they weren't happy. So I thought, wow, this is an important, you know, way for kids to tell their story. So I kept going. And I went to whatever classroom that would have me, whatever organization would have me. I even traveled to other states. And it was so powerful to hear these kids' stories from kids from, you know, any walk of life, not just at-risk kids, but, you know, affluent kids or everyday kids or kids of all ages. And what I learned is that every child has a story. Every child has a story that they need to tell, that's in their heart, that may be heavy for their heart that day or 10 days ago or even a year ago, and that they need to process. So I thought, okay, well, why don't we make this a process that teachers can use in a classroom, because teachers reach more kids. So, and parents can use it as well. Anybody can use it. Youth organizations can use it. It's even for adults too, but my focus is on kids and teens. So then I created the Imagine Project, which is a 7-step process that you guys are going to see today. And a process that helps, you know, teachers, guide teachers through it, helps kids to know that this is each step that they need to do to write, or even adults to know to write. So it's an important process. We're now a nonprofit. We have been for about 5 years. We're all across the country in every state, and we're actually in about 17 different countries. So it's expanded greatly and far greater reach than I'm even aware of. But I know we've reached over 125,000 kids. It's probably double that, but you know, the way that I can keep track of it, that's what it tells me right now. So I'm really proud of this process, and what's really important to know is that it's free. Everything in the Imagine Project is free except for the books, of course, but you don't need the books in order to do the process. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. I have 5 different statements from 5 different kids who wrote their imagined stories. It's not the whole story, but they're really a window into what they write. Imagine wishing there was someone there to pick you up from school every day. Imagine being the shy girl in school and waiting every single day for someone to notice you just once. Imagine your parents always pushing you to be better and not seeing how good you already are. Imagine feeling alone in a room full of people. Imagine always being seen by the color of your skin and not for who you really are. So those are big statements, and you can't believe the stories that kids tell. I mean, kindergarten through senior college age, I mean, it doesn't matter how old they are. The younger they are, hopefully the least dramatic they are, but they can be dramatic even in, kindergarten, first and second grade. But the whole point of the Imagine Project is to teach them their own resilience. Okay, so it's allowing them to get this experience on paper and talk about it, but it's also teaching them that they don't have to be defined by their story. So step 4 in the Imagine Project is asking them to write a different story. How do you want this story to end? What do you want? What else do you want in the world? What can you imagine for yourself? So here's 3 statements from those. Imagine finding a cure for diabetes. That was a 3rd grader. Imagine traveling the world and helping others who need you. I hear this one pretty frequently. Imagine making someone smile every day. So you can see the difference in those statements. The first part about the negative experience that's happened in their life are heavy. And then we bring them to a place of possibility, a place of positivity, getting them to know that that's where they should spend more of their time. And once they get to talk about their issue, then it's easy to get them there for the most part. So I just want to spend 5 minutes, maybe 10, talking about drama, trauma, and stress in kids. We as parents, even teachers, maybe teachers understand this better than parents do, but we see our kids hoping that they'll be joyful and playful, all the time, and hoping that this is the state they spend the most time in. But in reality, we know that there's a lot of time spent in stress, and for a lot of different reasons. Social media, pressures in school, too much communication with negativity in the world. There's a lot of things that cause stress for us and our kids. And we know that the incidence of stress is increasing. In the last 6 or 7 years, there's been an unprecedented spike in anxiety and depression. And right now I'm doing this video in the middle of the quarantine for the coronavirus. And the stress out there is just crazy. And it's hard. It's hard to not feel the stress. It's not hard to be stressed. And so it's really important to help ourselves and help our kids mitigate that stress. So stress negatively impacts developing neural pathways, because our brain, as we grow, the neural pathways that teach us, okay, this is what your brain needs to do when you ride a bike, or when you do algebra, or when you read a book. So those neural pathways are developing, but if that stress is constantly there, then that neural pathway is going to develop as a high stress neural pathway. And that can lead to long-term anxiety, depression, even other mental health disorders. So we want to let the body and the brain know that stress is temporary. We're all going to feel stress, and that's okay, because our brains need to learn how to cope with it. But chronic everyday stress is not okay, and it's not good for the brain. It's not good for the immune function. It's not good for hormone function, and it really interrupts our ability to focus and learn. So symptoms of stress in children are agitation, anxiety, hyperactivity, inability to focus, low emotional control, poor decision-making, lack of empathy. And other physical symptoms might be stomach aches, headaches, change in appetite, having food cravings. You can get sick. If you have a lot of stress, you can get sick frequently. And a child can become clingy or have compulsive habits, change in sleep patterns, or become quiet, secretive. Now I want to talk a little bit about trauma. So these adorable little boys, you can't see their trauma, but they have significant trauma. Their stories actually of their uncle is in the first big book that I did. And sadly, their background is their mother and father were killed from a murder-suicide. And then when their uncle took them in graciously, his house burnt down. So it's interesting, because I'm sure in their behavior, you could tell the stress and trauma, but just by looking at their adorable faces, you wouldn't be able to tell it. So know that you can not always see it, but it's important to allow it to be spoken. And I like to explain trauma as anything that overwhelms your coping mechanisms. So we all have different coping mechanisms. Mine is different than yours, and yours is different than the person sitting next to you, because we all have different experiences of life and our brains develop a little bit differently. You know, if we don't know how to cope with something, if our bodies, you know, we're in a car accident and we've never had a car accident before, we don't necessarily know how to cope with that. So any experience that overwhelms our ability to know how to process it, and then it gets stuck. It gets stuck in our minds, it gets stuck in our bodies, even energetically. And then it's hard to, you know, it's always there, always talking to us. And kids are more easily affected by trauma, mostly because their frontal lobe is not developed and they can't process it, and they don't have the experience, you know. So it's important to allow that and give them that ability to process. So the incidence of trauma is higher than you think. In a study that was called the ACEs research, over 13,000 participants. And this was a study done in San Diego by the CDC and Kaiser. And it showed that they asked parents, or they asked people, these 13,000 participants, 10 questions. Have you been exposed to or experienced maybe divorce or death or a parent in prison, or some big things, really big things, neglect, abuse? And what they found of this research of white, middle-class, well-educated people, that 50% of these people had one traumatic experience before the age of 17. That's a pretty big number, 50%. If you're in a white, middle-class, well-educated area, 50% of your kids in your classroom could potentially have had a traumatic experience. And that add in poverty, crime, and rural communities, and the incidence goes up to 70 to 100%. What's really important about this study is that it showed that trauma causes adult onset illness, childhood trauma. So if you have trauma, you know, one experience or 5 experiences, you're gonna be more likely, according to how many of those experiences you actually had, to have adult illness like chronic lung disease or heart disease or cancer, big diabetes, big insults, big illnesses. There's a great book I recommend called Childhood Disrupted that I think can talk to you more about that if you're interested. So symptoms of trauma are similar to stress, but extreme fears, withdrawal, not trusting others, school problems, social changes or unhealthy relationships, self-harm, and unresolved emotional issues will cause kids to have difficulty focusing and learning, have poor social skills, disengage with school, and be prone to high-risk behaviors. Some of you probably, especially those that work in alternative schools, probably see this all the time, or high-risk schools. And so it's important to help kids, you know, have an opportunity to resolve some of those issues, particularly if they're, you know, not really intense. You're not there to do therapy. You're just there to give them a voice to change perspective of the experience that they've had. And you'll see how that works in a few minutes. So kids need tools to help them deal with life issues, because we have them, you know, particularly right now, we have them. And kids have them, and they need some tools to help them deal. So the Imagine Project is a great tool to help them express how they're feeling. And teachers and counselors and admin need tools to help kids handle stress and your own stress, because the stress is very prevalent, and it is particularly now, and it probably will continue to be for a little while. So I think this is a funny slide. Who says teaching is stressful? I'm 39 and I feel great. So anyway, mitigating stress and trauma. There's 3 things that I believe, and other professionals believe, are important in this. Emotional expression, energetic release, and calming the nervous system. These are all things that you can do as teachers, counselors, parents, admin in your school. These are all really important pieces. So, and it's not meant to be therapy. It's just meant to give kids an opportunity to express themselves and to do some things to help them move forward. So the Imagine Project is one of those tools, and to help particularly with emotional expression, and it's done through literacy. So I believe, and I've seen, and some of our research shows that Imagine Project gives students the opportunity to sort through issues that are keeping him or her from learning. It builds resilience and grit. It creates a compassionate and kind community in the classroom, and it helps teachers understand their students better. I hear this over and over, what kind of community it creates, particularly if the students read their stories out loud. It's just powerful, and friends are found, and compassion comes out, and it's a great tool to help teach compassion. And the kids feel and see, they feel the resilience in themselves, and they see the resilience in others, which helps them believe that they too can be resilient. So the Imagine Project, as I said before, is a journal format, a 7-step journal format. It's got, we have 4 journals. So there's the kids journal, the teen journal, the adult journal, and all those follow the same 7 steps. The language has changed a little bit for the kids journal, and there's a place for them to draw on their journal. So that's really important for the younger ones. And then when you get to kindergarten and 1st grade, they're not really ready until about 2nd grade to write their Imagine stories in the 7-step process. So I decided to write a children's book, Byron the Caterpillar Who Loved to Imagine. And so the kindergarten journal follows that Imagine, the Byron book. So the steps follow the Byron book, and then it leads them into writing a short Imagine story. So I recommend that if you don't have Byron the Caterpillar Loves to Imagine, you can email me, or you can do the kids journal with the little ones. So here's a video of a young girl, a 5th grader, reading her Imagine story.
My name is Faith, and this is my Imagine story. Imagine you had a brother. Imagine you never got to meet him. Imagine your siblings seem like they don't talk to you because they're so far apart in age. Imagine that this brother was only 1 year older than you. Imagine that he is in heaven. Imagine that when he was born, he was smaller than your hand. Imagine looking at a bag of ashes the size of a computer mouse. Imagine that bag of ashes could have been your best friend. But imagine that that bag of ashes is your secret keeper. Imagine that you can tell him all your problems and he will be with you all the way through. Imagine having a guardian angel helping you every day. Imagine hoping to see him again. The Imagine Project, it helps to just kind of get your feelings out and get everything out that you're holding inside, and that you hear everyone else's Imagine story and you didn't know that about them. You almost grow to like that person more, and you feel like if I ever said something mean to them, because they were maybe rude back, you know why they were rude now, and you kind of want to feel some empathy for them. Before the Imagine Project, I kind of felt like it was just harder to just kind of tell everybody how I felt. It kind of opened up everyone could tell me their Imagine story, and I could tell everybody mine, and we could all kind of trust each other. I'm happy that Miss Parker let me do the Imagine Project, because I wouldn't have maybe been where I am today without the Imagine Project. I feel like I'm doing better as expressing myself and advocating for myself, and actually telling my friends what's wrong when I'm sad and things like that. It just kind of helped me open up.
So I love to show Faith's video, because she's such an articulate 5th grader. She's pretty amazing, and she has a story that's kind of hidden. It's a story of what's going on at home, and but without saying a lot about exactly what's going on at home. And the thing that's interesting about Faith's story is that before she wrote her story, she was a bit of a bully. And after she wrote a story, that bullying really chilled out because she understood herself. The other kids understood her, and she understood the other kids. So, because they all read their stories out loud, and it just really created a sense of understanding and compassion between each other with her and the other students, and vice versa. So, it's just a powerful understanding of what can come from writing your imagined story. So there's something really important about the word imagine. That's what makes it different than other storytelling processes, because the word imagine is such a powerful word, and it brings in the right side of the brain. It allows you to step away from your story just enough to feel safe. You're also writing rather than eye-to-eye contact telling your story. This is eye-to-eye contact is more intimidating, and writing it just feels safer. Using the word imagine, they're asking someone else to imagine their story, to imagine to be in my shoes and to understand my life. And wow, that feels like you're being heard and loved and cared for. And it's really, really powerful, and that's what makes this process so important. So here's the teen journal. You can see any of the journals for free on theimagineproject.org. And this is a sample of the teen journal, and I'm actually going to ask you guys to walk through and do the process if you're all doing it either individually or as a group. And I would say play a song for each. This is meant to be fast, and it's meant to not think too much about it, to just write and write and write without thinking too much of yours in your head. It's not about grammar, punctuation, or spelling. It's about putting down your emotions. It's about free writing, free expression. And so I would tell your kids, don't worry about grammar and punctuation. Just write from your heart. Start where your story wants to speak, and just write. And kids will. There'll be some that won't, but kids will write. So here's the first step. So step one is celebrate. So this step is about celebrating what you love in your life, like things you're proud of, things you're grateful for, all the things. List at least 3 things. That's what I say to kids. List at least 3 things you're grateful for. And kids who are in alternative schools or really at risk, they might have a hard time listing things. So you can give them ideas like, your phone, your best friend, your dog, your family. And then at the bottom of the page, write down words about how those things make you feel. So I'm just going to hit the play for you guys to know which song I play here. And then I'm not going to keep it on for this whole time because it'll make the video too long. So anyway, that song is Christina Aguilera. I think it's called. So I encourage you to just write and play this song. And that's it, just 1 second. Okay, so step 2 is called reflect. So step 2 is something that's been difficult in your life, either today, last week, yesterday, a year ago, 10 years ago. A statement, at least I have kids write at least one thing that's been hard for them. And some kids, particularly younger ones, will say, I don't have anything. So you give them some suggestions, or if they really can't come up with anything, then I know one teacher, one girl was so upset because she couldn't come up with anything that she had her write about not being able to come up with anything. And it turned out that that little girl felt a lot of pressure to do her best in school. So that led to her writing about that. So, and if kids really can't come up with anything, then have them write about somebody that they believe is an important figure in the world or important in their life and their story. So, and then at the bottom, the you write down words about how that negative thing makes you feel. So again, this song that I play, let's see, it's Renegades. Oh no, it's not. It's Story of My Life. Anyway, so the next step. So I hope you shut the computer off and just allowed for that song to play on somebody's phone or whatever, and wrote down the things that have been challenging in your life. Reflection. So then the next step is to imagine, to write an imagined story about something, the thing that has been difficult in your life. So something from step 2, write down what the story of it. You write down, my story might be, imagine growing up in a home where you didn't really feel love. Imagine your father being drunk all the time. So imagine or you can take it down and write just about one specific incident. Like, imagine being in a school that you love so much. Imagine having lots of friends. Imagine your parents coming home one day and telling you have to move. Imagine being scared, those kinds of things. So younger kids like to write in, shorter sentences, maybe even want to write the whole thing in one sentence. Have them stretch it out and write, to be more detailed in that. You know how to do this as teachers. And then the older kids, just tell them it's not about it's not about grammar, punctuation, or spelling. Just write from your heart. And the older kids, I would tell them, you're not going to read the stories, because they'll write more that way. And don't read them. If you tell them you're not going to read them, don't read them. And eventually they may want you to read them. Kids who really want to be heard will leave it on their table, or actually give it to you when they're done, because they need somebody to hear their story. So it's okay if you don't read them. It's okay legally. We were told in my school district, it's okay to not read them legally. So now take the time to write your imagined story. And I would say, hopefully someone, if you're doing this as a professional development day, someone can be in charge of doing the music. I forgot to take the music off of this slideshow. So the first song is by Maisie Gray, Into the Dust. And hang on. Then you can play songs like Bob Marley's Three Little Birds, It's Gonna Be All Right. You kind of play songs that bring in depth in this area and then start to move them into the positive. So if you're writing, start your story, with a negative story, and you might naturally move into the positive. But some people don't, and that's okay. And you might not have enough time to move into the positive. So that's what the next step is about, is moving into the positive. If you do it on this step, that's great. If you don't, then you don't. So just stop this video recording and play a few songs and write until you're finished, okay? The other thing, okay, and then come back on and I'll talk about the other. So hopefully you wrote your stories, and it was a powerful process to write your stories. One thing that I recommend doing is having people read their stories out loud. So like 3 people, pick, depends on if you have a group or if you're by yourself. If you're by yourself, then obviously that can happen. But in a classroom, the younger the kids, the more they want to read their story. So the whole class might want to read their story once one gets started. And sometimes, it's kind of sad. Sometimes kids will read stories about losing their puppy dog or their grandmother or grandfather. And of course that brings tears, and that's okay. The tears are a release. You don't have to stop the tears. You can let them cry. You can give them hugs. You can, get them to run around and, and jump around and let go of their release, go outside after they're all crying, but it really brings love into the classroom. Even if there's tears, that process brings kids closer together. And it's okay. The release is okay. You don't have to stop it. You don't have to fix it. And it will stop on its own. And it's okay if there's tears. So one thing you can do is you can tap. So I'm going to pretend that there's a group of you doing your, having read your stories, and the energy in the room is kind of heavy. And I'm going to show you a little bit of something called EFT, or tapping, emotional freedom technique, or tapping. And I have videos on doing this on my website. You can learn this on YouTube. There's a bunch of different ways. Something called thetappingsolution.com. Thetappingsolution.com will teach you how to tap. It's also a beautiful app. I know they have some free things on there that are really, really useful for teachers. So I would encourage you to go to thetappingsolution.com. So here's a little taste of it. So, okay. That's my story. And you say it out loud. Do what I do and say what I say. So that's my story. I don't like my story. My story is hard. My story makes me feel bad. My story makes me feel sad. My story makes me feel shame. My story makes me feel a lot of negative things. I'm under my arm tapping. My story is hard. I wish I didn't have my story. I wish my story wasn't there anymore. I can't change my story, but I can change how I react to it. I can let go of that negative imprint that it's made on my life. I can let go of the sadness, the fear, the anger, lots of negative things. What if I let go of those emotions? What if I allowed myself not to feel them anymore? What if I wrote a new story? What if I could believe in myself again? What if I could see life from a perspective that doesn't have that story in it? That would be awesome. I would love to feel that. It's time for me to feel that. It's time for me to see possibility. It's time for me to let it go. Because I am, I can, and I will. So that was just a taste of tapping. You can do that with classrooms. You can do it with yourself. You can teach yourself how to do it. You start out with naming the naming the negative. Name the negative part of the story and how that makes you feel, or how you think the kids are feeling. And then you can do it as a group, because a lot of them will feel the same thing, and name a whole bunch of different things. And then you slowly move into the positive and possibility. So I've obviously practiced at it, but you can practice at it too. And remember, thetappingsolution.com and my website will show you how to begin with this. It's really powerful, really important, and it helps to let go of that negative energy, that negative imprint in your body. So, okay, so now it's time to move to the positive. So the next step is to write what story you want instead. So I'm going to play this video. It's probably not good for under about 5th grade, but you can use discretion with it. Obviously, all the videos, all the music are listed on the imagineproject.org under the For Schools page and for teachers. And so I encourage you to check those out. There's tons more videos, even some alternative kids videos, some younger kids videos. And you can show those in your classroom, and you can show them to your kids, or just your professional development. You can go to the website and pick those, okay? So here's the video that starts the step 4, the positive possibility. Think about what you want instead in your life.
If you died today, what dreams, what ideas, what gifts, what talents, what voice, what stories will die with you? See, a lot of people go to work every day miserable, and all they do is just talk about how miserable they are, but they don't do anything about it. You know that you're deliberately operating below your potential. You've gotten comfortable. You stop expanding. You stop stretching. You stop challenging yourself. It's hard living. Life is hard. So most people don't use their imaginations. Most people don't dream anymore. Why? Because through the conditioning process of life, after so many rejections, see, you know what you can do. You know what you have done, and you also have seen what has been done by others in your environment and by others in your circumstances. Then you look at where you want to go, and what most people do, they do that which they feel they know that can work because they've already done it or they've seen it done. And so they allow their negative history to determine the possibilities for them. And so when they run into a roadblock, even if they have something beyond their comfort zone, when they run into a roadblock, something happens to them. Most people allow life to control them and their circumstances. Look into the future. What is it you want? What is it you'd like to create for you? You want to make your dream come true, you got to stay focused. Some people rather get even than get ahead. Stay focused on where you want to go. This is not going to be it for my life. I deserve more than this. See, that will start making you do some stuff. Not only is it possible for you to have your dream, but it's necessary. It's necessary that you have it, that you work on it, that you develop yourself, that you go for what is yours in the universe. The major key to your reaching your dream, your living up to your greatness, your making your contribution to your making things happen in your life is you. That you've got to take personal responsibility to make it happen. That you make it happen, that you don't give up, that you don't take any objection or disappointment or defeats personally, that you keep on keeping on, that you don't decide that I can't make it because you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Live your life with passion, with some drive. You've got to remind yourself that you've got powers within you, talents within you that you haven't even reached for yet. See, whatever dream you got, that dream, that idea, that has been given to you. There's no guarantee that because somebody is now down on their luck, they can never come back. Who can guarantee that you can't make it? That you can't have your dream? Who can guarantee that you can't do what you want to do? No one can do that. No one can predict that. What we need to do is we look at our dream as we get ready to hit the floor. I'm blessed and highly favored.
I just love that video. I think it's so inspiring. So as the video says, you know, it's important to imagine, it's important to dream, it's important to see forward instead of just stay stuck in that negative story. So step 4 is write what story you want instead. Write new possibilities in your life. How you want that story that you just wrote about to end, or if you want to talk about something completely different. Have kids dream about, you know, what they want to do in life. Doing well in school, making new friends, parents getting along, whatever, you know, the possibilities are endless. So I would stop this video and play 1 or 2 songs. The song that I love to play, you probably only need 1 song, but Just Imagine It by MKTO. That's Just Imagine It by MKTO. It's a great song to play right now, and particularly for kids, they like it. So, and there are plenty of other songs, just, you know, more of an inspiring song. So the other steps, the other steps we're not going to do because I don't think it's necessary for you. I just wanted you to feel the process up to this point and how there's a switch from step 3 in the negative to step 4 into the positive. It's so important to do that. Do not stop. Of course, you can stop and wait till the next day, but don't stop the process on the negative. Be sure to get them to step 4. And I would say step 5 and 6 and 7 can be somewhat optional. I would rather you do them, but if you don't have time, be sure to get to step 4. So step 5 is to transform your imagined dreams into I am, I can, I will statements. You know, I am smart enough to get good grades. I can get grades. I will graduate from high school, or something like that. Whatever their dream is, have them own them with I statements. And these next steps are positive songs like Be Brave or Rise Up, or, you know, get them pumped up for possibility. Step 6 is what do you need to do to make your dreams happen? And a lot of kids are really good at this. You know, they know they need to get good grades. They know they need to hang out with the right people. So this is a pretty easy step for them. And then step 7 is a 30-day Imagine Gratitude Kindness Challenge. So every day for 30 days, have them write down 3 things they want to imagine in their life and 3 things they're grateful for, and do 1 act of kindness. So we know gratitude changes those neural pathways for the positive. We also know goal planning is really important to getting things done. And of course, 1 act of kindness just makes the world a better place. So if we practice this for 30 days, particularly right now when life is really stressful, it's very important to find gratitude and to dream about possibilities. So a lot of kids imagine going back to school and seeing my friends. Teachers are imagining that too, because what you're doing right now is really, really stressful. So possibility, focus on that, teach their brains to do that. And then, so just a little bit more about how does this work? It works through organizing thoughts, expressing emotion, making sense of an experience. Kids find greater meaning. They find their voice. There was a little boy I went into in a high-risk school, and a 6th grader, and I walked in and I said, okay, well, you guys are going to do a writing process, and who here likes to write? And this kid threw his pencil down. He said, I don't like to write. I hate writing. And so I said, okay, well, you know, hopefully you'll join in. And he did. And all of a sudden I looked over and he's like writing like crazy, crazy, crazy. And when they shared their stories, he shared a very powerful story about losing his dad. And his dad had died. And of course, everybody was very moved and gave him lots of hugs and support. And when at the end I said, so what did you guys think? And he raised his hand and he said, I love to write now. And that happens. I hear that a lot. Kids find their voice through the Imagine Project. So it's easier for them to write. So that's really important. It creates relationships. Kids find other kids who have the same experiences. It promotes social comfort because you understand each other. It focuses on success and resilience, and it gives hope and coping strategies, and it meets court standards. So this is a list that I did not put together. Some teachers did. You probably don't need to focus on it, but if this is important to you, know that it can meet a lot of core standards. And this, she said, you know, the teachers told me there's more than 1 page of this. So there's a lot, and particularly if you build on it. So when teachers use it like as part of a lesson of reading other books and other, you know, hopeful books of kids or characters who've overcome, I'm not a teacher, so I don't know the language, but you can really scaffold and build on those things, and it meets so many different core standards. So I would really encourage you to look at that a little bit more carefully. I want you to know this is evidence-based practice. It's based on 25 years of expressive writing research, that we know that expressive writing, which is what the Imagine Project is, free writing, increases GPA, decreases dropout rates, lessens anxiety and depression, improves immune function, which is really important, and decreases test anxiety and lessens PTSD symptoms. Our own research shows that it increases the student's ability to handle stress, Students know that they need support from others, which can be really huge, and then increases their attitudes about school. So we also did this interesting test. It's called the waving machine, where this little cap takes an imprint, like a 4-minute imprint. It's like an EEG. So we did this, and we did the EEG type thing on the waving machine, and then they did the Imagine project for a week. And then we tested them again, and we saw a difference in brain function. So it was a small cohort. We're going to do it again as soon as school gets back into classrooms. And but it showed decreased cortisol levels, arousal, so that means a relaxing of the system, decreases anxiety markers, and we saw a high incidence of ADHD, which goes along with trauma. So implementation, this is I believe that classrooms should do it once a semester, at least once a year. And then once the kids know the process, you can offer it to students who are struggling with any sort of challenge. There was a little 3rd grade boy who had done the Imagine project, and he unfortunately, his puppy had died. So he came in and he was so sad. He couldn't stop crying. He just couldn't get it together. He was sobbing. And the teachers finally said, "What do you need?" And he said, "I need to write my Imagine story." So he wrote his Imagine story. He was able to gather himself and join the classroom again. So it can really help if there's something going on at home, or something going on at school with friends, and really encourage kids to use it as a tool, and let them understand this is a lifelong tool. You can use it with individuals, groups, classrooms, school-wide, and it helps you focus on positivity and possibility. So, when you do it, it can get heavy when they do the 3rd step, but don't stay in that place for too long. Help them to move forward into the possibility. So it's important to focus on that versus the heaviness. I would say a classroom of, around 30 is the ideal, or, smaller, of course, smaller classrooms are great. You can do it with larger groups, but it can be a challenge if it gets bigger than that. And to do it school-wide is really great, because then everybody's in it together and everybody knows they're doing it, and Imagine can be the theme of the school, and it's just awesome. So here's some examples. That top left is some gifted and talented kids that put their stories on the wall. The one on the right is a very small school in eastern Colorado. We did it with the entire school at once. The lower left is an adorable little 1st grader that it was Christmas, and writing that he wants to be an inventor and imagine making kids toys that are inexpensive, so all kids can have toys. And then there's some upper left is some English language development kids. And then the one on the right is the group in India doing it. And then the lower left is Africa, which is really cool. So I think the biggest question I get is, should we bring up difficult life experiences in a classroom? I think that's a teacher's choice. I think if you're not really comfortable with it, then maybe it's not the best choice for you. But I think it's really powerful. And again, you're not doing therapy. If the child brings up something that they can't process, then you know that they need extra help, and to call in or to send them to a counselor or something for extra support. If you know that your kids in the classroom are going to have a lot of trauma, then bring in the counselors while you do it. Have them present, have them there. But getting them to move forward to the positive. I've been in a classroom where like 5 3rd graders are crying at the same time. And, it feels a little overwhelming, actually. There was a few of us in there as adults, but by the end, when we brought them to step 4 and got them excited and had them jump around and move around with Go Noodle, and then they were like, "Can we do this every day? We love this. It makes us feel so much better." And so getting them to that point is so powerful, and then it creates a whole different culture in the classroom. So this is a picture of a little boy who had a cleft lip repair, and he was writing about it in his surgery, and he was crying and he had a hard time reading it. So the little boy next to him, he said, "I'll read it," and then he started crying, and then the teacher ended up having to read it. But the love that it created, look at these kids surrounding and hugging him. I mean, they just wanted to be there for him because they love him. And imagine how supported that little boy feels. And I will tell you a story of a fifth grader who read his story out loud to the whole fifth grade in a suburbia school. And he talked about losing his dad when he was young and having to move like 5 times in the last 2 years. He just got into this school. The kids thought he was a little quiet, quirky, and so they weren't playing with him. And after he read his story, the kids rallied around and said, come be our friend, you know, and it didn't just last for a week, it lasted for the entire year. So imagine how that changed the trajectory of that child's life. And and kids are so resilient. You know, they may cry for a little while, but they bounce back. They really do. They bounce back, and they are even better because they were able to express their truth. So try not to worry too much about it. It's very temporary. So the best thing I can say if the kids show emotion is to see them without their story. So if you go over and you get really involved in their story and feel their sadness so deeply, then that's not as helpful as if you say, wow, that must be really hard. And then with your energy, with your eyes, with your love, see them without their story, see their resilience, because that's what they really need. They need somebody to show them they aren't defined by that story, and then help them see the possibility, you know, the bouncing back. And I know one wonderful teacher, I saw her tell the rest of the kids, now bubble wrap them in love. They're going to read their story, bubble wrap them in love. And they did, and it's just beautiful. So imagine bubble wrapping them in love, and know that what you're doing is you're saying, I am here for you. I am here with you. And as you feel this and be this, I'm not here to fix it. I'm just here with you. So that's the energy you hold the space for. So the other piece, so that's the Imagine Project. If you have any questions, because there's nobody on this video, that you'll have to email them to me, and I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to do another video of teachers who have used it and can talk about using it, and hopefully that'll answer some of your questions. I know that introducing it, you can read stories from my books. I have in the second book, I don't have a copy of it with me right now, unfortunately, but the Imagine Project, Empowering Kids to Rise Above Drama, Trauma, and Stress. In the back, there's tons of stories of kids. Throughout the book, there's stories of kids. There's teacher stories. There's alternative kids stories. There's fifth grade stories. So you can start with those. You can show them some videos to introduce it, and even write your own story. So, you know, you probably don't want to, if it's a big story, write 2 stories, write the really big story for yourself, and then write another story about something else, like what you think they might be feeling about bullying or moving or something, and introduce, you know, read them your story too. So that's important that they hear that. It changes everything. Kids love to know their teacher's stories. It makes you real. So that's a good way to introduce it as well. So the other 2 pieces that I want to just touch on, because I think they're important, but I talked about the 3 things that I think helps process stress and trauma. And the first is the emotional expression. The other one is the energetic release. So anytime that there's negative, even positive experiences in life, there's an imprint in us, and a negative or an energetic imprint. We want to allow that negative imprint to release, to let go of. And I know this might be out there for some of you guys, but it's so true. And it's what's helped me with healing more than anything is the energetic release of it. If you just talk about it without being able to move your body and allow for that release, it's not as effective. So some ways to do that are what we already talked about, emotional freedom technique, and the website. Go Noodle has, you know, Go Noodle, if you have younger kids, to move around and to let them, you know, let it go, or go on recess. And on my website, I have 3 things: the hummingbird pose, the super brain yoga, and then of course, you can have them play and exercise to release that energy. Dancing is great. So just any sort of movement. And then another important thing is calming the nervous system. When there's trauma, when we're sped up from some negative experience, it's very hard to relax, and it's not good to stay in that sped up state. It's not good to stay in that sympathetic nervous system state, because that's where in long term illness will come in. Because in the parasympathetic, the calming state is where healing happens and processing happens, and we're able to relax and be joyful and happy. So it's important for you to calm your nervous system. It's important for the kids to calm their nervous system. And that's done through things like what I said, the tapping. So humming is great. You could do it with your kids, you know, have them take a deep breath in and just hum out, or hum a song. Or humming is really calming to the nervous system. It vibrates the vagus nerve, which runs throughout your whole body. Really, really important. So hum in your classroom or by yourself or on your way to work. Exercise yoga, of course. Go Noodle has some great mindfulness videos I watched. I thought they were awesome. Take a class in mindfulness. Mindfulness is not that hard. I've been in classrooms where teachers do practice and teach it mindfulness. Completely different story. Kids are able to relax and calm down so much easier. So give it a shot, read about it, learn about it. I have stuff in my book about it. And then of course, hummingbird pose and super brain yoga. So I love this picture because it shows the importance of positivity in our lives. So these are 3 plants planted at the same time, watered, put in the same sunshine. And on the left, there's a recording of negative feedback for that plant. Negative statements over and over again. The middle, nothing. And on the right, positive statements over and over. So it shows the power of positive statements in our life. It brings us our immune system's up. It makes us feel better. So we have to teach kids to stay positive and to be positive. So the Imagine Project does that. I love this quote. You can't love someone else if you don't love yourself, and you can't love yourself until someone else loves you. I believe Dr. Yeager is a famous psychologist who did the foreword in my book. I believe that the Imagine Project is about love, and you are loving your students as they tell their stories and believing in them as they write a new story. So helping change their perspective, helping them understand themselves on a deep, loving way. So I would encourage you to bring that love in your classroom. I hope that this is a process that you feel comfortable with and can use. There's lessons plans on the website. We're creating a guidebook to make it more thorough. You can always email me with questions. So I want you to know there's healing for all issues. If you're writing this feeling like, oh my gosh, there's something in your personal life or with some of your kids, your students, know that there's healing for all issues. I am living proof of that. I wrote a book of living proof of that. But it does require work. It does require, those 3 things to heal those pieces of our life. And it can begin with the Imagine Project and continue with the Imagine Project. So healing will happen. Please spread the word. And the more people that know about it, the better, because it is free and easy to use. And there's my contact information. So thank you so much for being a part of this. And I hope that this was helpful for you. And I will add more videos as I can, because now videos are needed more than ever. So good luck, and I hope that this helps you with your kids who are stressed now and possibly in the future. So continue imagining. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.